Everybody knows this piece. Even if you don't know the name Für Elise, you've definitely heard the song. And if you've been to a piano recital, this thing showed up at least 3 times. Now, because it's on piano and it's a classical piece, we might think that it's difficult to play. But when you play it on guitar, at least, it's actually not that difficult at all. And it's one of course, the most recognizable pieces, like I said. So I think it's very much worth playing here. And in this video, we're going to deconstruct Für Elise. Going to look at a few different versions that I have in some books lying around here. Look at the pros and cons of these different arrangements, and then come up with one that makes the most sense, I think, for us. We'll even look at some ways to simplify it and even do some strumming there to make it more fun to play. So let's get into it. Before I forget to mention it, you can get the free tab below, and it's going to be the version that we're ultimately going to come up with at the end of this tutorial. Now, some of you might know there's a whole second part to Für Elise that is very seldom heard. Now, that would be harder to play, but the part that everybody knows, the main theme, is still itself 2 sections, and the minor key and the relative major. And even these books, they only include that section because that's the part that everyone's most familiar with, but it also stands on its own as a complete piece, even when we only play that first part. Digging up my books here. Now, what we're going to look at today is the Parkening version from his classical guitar method, which is really good. There's 2 volumes there. I believe it's in the first volume of that. I have it as a PDF on my computer, or I would show that to you. And this book, Easy Guitar Classics, that's the one that's lying around here. Should definitely have that one. Some good stuff in there. And sometimes they simplify things too much. And then this huge book of classical guitar pieces, and that is actually in tablature as well. So there's a million versions of this, and weirdly enough, like if we had a Tarrega piece, like let's say Adelita, it's going to be note for note the same in just about every book that you find it in. But Für Elise, there's variations just kind of built in, especially this part when it repeats, that little middle section that it's so hard to get lost on. Each of these versions actually does that part differently, which I find interesting. But because it was written on piano, I think we have more leeway as opposed to like something that Tarrega wrote. We got to really do because he was a guitarist and he wants us to play it that way on that fret, on that string. That's why I think there might be more leeway here with this Beethoven piece. But first, before we even look at those arrangements, let's just look at the chords and the melody separated. So Für Elise is often played in the key of A minor. I'm assuming that he wrote it in the key of A minor for piano. But every version for guitar is in the key of A minor. So we have an A minor chord. That's the 1 chord, right? And then it goes to the 5. I mean, just absolutely typical harmony there. That's the harmonic minor scale, though. And then back to the 1 chord. And then it goes to the relative major of C major and does exactly the same thing. The 1 in C major, and then G7 is the 5. And that's really it. Then it's back to A minor to E7. But the way the song starts is so iconic, and everybody knows that we have that, but we're going to play it an octave lower than that. But that is an E note, which is an important note in the chord, the 5th of the chord. And we have this flat 5 or sharp 4. And if you've seen my videos on Pika Pika, I love that song. That flat 5, I like to call it a flat 5. It's like the Hungarian minor scale there just for a moment. Playing with the 5 to the flat 6, which is part of the scale, and then that flat 5 is such a Spanish guitar thing. Over here in Argentine Tango, there it is right there. So it kind of makes perfect sense that that's happening, at least in the harmonic minor key. And in fact, it's not the note that makes it a harmonic minor. G sharp would be that note, but this is kind of a color tone in the harmonic minor scale. There it is right there. And some of us call that the Hungarian or Gypsy minor scale. And it really makes things sound really, I don't know, let's call it gypsy-ish for lack of a better word, or very classical, you could say also. So let's play the high E string. And then we have D sharp here. Unfortunately, we're going to be forced to play this with our pinky when we add the chord in a minute. And there's a few ways that we can do this. We'll see later on. We can do that, or you can go an octave higher. It's E to D sharp. But there's a couple of ways to do this. You could let this ring out, and I kind of like both of these ways. Well, we're hearing both of them ringing. Or we can continue to take this pinky off in between every note. That way they're more distinct. That's up to you, experiment with that. But the melody, not the chords, is just this. Okay, that's the main theme, and you know that. So E, D sharp a few times here. This is in 3/4 time, a waltz, but we're starting on the 3rd beat. After that main catchy opening phrase, the melody really, there's a lot of accompaniment going on, but the melody, I would say, is longer note. So it goes, and the next melody note is, there's going to be arpeggiated chords underneath that, and then to C. And so the chord is A minor, so let's just play A in the bass. Right there. And then we have that B string with the low E, and then to C with the A. Now we want to put those chords in there. So we have A minor, E7. We don't always have to play the full chord, but let's look at this. So obviously we have to keep the melody intact, we can't change that. But what happens here when we resolve to this A minor chord, it's not completely up to you, but we've got to stay in 3-4 times. And we want to still be hearing the melody notes, but we're going to arpeggiate it. Now the Parkening book and that easy classical guitar book, not the huge one, but the easy one, they go like this. And we play this A note in the melody and the A string at the same time, right on the downbeat, and then they arpeggiate from there. One book goes... We play the low E, which is the 5th of the chord. But the Parkening book goes... I kind of like that better because it doesn't muddy up. That low E is cool, but then if we let it ring out, it gets a little bit muddy sounding, I would say, unless we have the presence of mind to kill that string. So I'm not going to play the 6th string. I'm going to do it the Parkening way and stay on the 5th string. But look what this huge classical guitar book does. Instead of playing those two at the same time, it staggers them, plays the melody note first, and then plays the bass note. I kind of like that. In the version that we're ultimately going to do, we'll stick with the Parkening way. It's actually, it's more straightforward in some ways, but actually kind of harder than what I just did. But what I like about this way, watch. And then we arpeggiate from there. It really makes the melody stand out, the end of that phrase. And it actually sounds more complicated because we have a higher note than that low one, and then we climb up instead of doing them both at the same time. I kind of like that. But like I said, we're going to just keep it a little straightforward and play that bass note right on the first beat like this. Now we're over to the E chord. You can play a full E if you like, but probably would be better and easier if you play this fragment of E. And that measure is going to go like this. Okay, all we're doing is arpeggiating. So with your right hand, talk about what's happening in the right hand here a little bit. For that measure that I just played, you could play your ring finger here. That makes sense enough. Or you could play your middle finger and have a little more thumb action. And that makes sense to me too. I almost can't decide. And I think actually that might be a better way to go in the long run. For most players, those fingers are stronger. And then we're going to A minor. And now I'm closer now to that first string where we start again. So back to this main melody, you could do your middle finger and index on those two, talking about the right hand. Right? Or you could do your ring in your middle. That's a little bit weirder, but I think a great exercise. Ending up with a thumb in the middle right there. So I'm going to say though, for now, let's use our middle and index. We're just kind of prioritizing our stronger fingers. Okay, watch out on this A minor chord. We have to play kind of multiple, we'll see this later too, multiple thumb strokes on the same string. Go over to E. There's the resolution of the first section. And then we start again. 1, 2, 3, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 1. Now right there, hear how these strings ring out? That's kind of on the fence there too. Should we let them ring out or should we kill them? I think the best thing to do would be to kill them, but we can't always do it and it's not always easy to do. So you can let them ring, totally fine, or come over here and lay your thumb, the side of your thumb down, and try to just touch as many strings as you can as we to kill them so that we can make this melody stand out more. See how my thumb's on the G string? That is what we could call the A section here. Now we're going to go to the B section. There's going to be a hard part coming up. I mean, like I said, the song isn't that hard, but there is a weird part, but there's a lot of leeway there, and we'll notice that these books will do it different ways. But before we even get to that, the second ending is going to, instead of resolving here and of course playing this, it's a pickup note. The very first measure or partial measure in the song is a pickup measure with these two pickup notes, 3 and then There's the beat. So the first ending went 1 and 2 and then 3 and we're back to the beginning. But the second ending to take us to the B section goes 1 and 2 and 3 and. I'm letting the other notes ring out. I think that sounds good in that particular part. Just playing an A minor chord. Take this off for an open B, C, D with your pinky. And then we're going to go to a C chord. And here, there's different ways to do this. The Parkening book plays, and this is exactly what I was talking about in the A section, plays the bass note with the melody note on the first beat. But let's do it not that way. Let's do it like these other books do it. I think for this part, it sounds more appropriate and very cool and a little bit easier. Like that. We play an F. We're still trying to hold the C chord down if we can. Notice I'm holding C, but we never played a C note here. I just think it's good policy. If you hit a wrong string or something, it still will sound correct, but you don't have to have that finger down. Pinky here. Now here you could go thumb, thumb, thumb. I do that a lot. Or thumb, thumb, index and go from there. Going thumb, 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 like I was mentioning earlier, it gets you closer to the floor and maybe it's easier to go to the next part. You decide. Here's the crazy part. But before we do that, let's go back and look at it again. The B section. C chord, but all we need is this high E at first and then build it up. A minor. Now here we go. Now let's just look at the 3 different ways in these books that they approach this, and then I'll show you one way that we can do it, which will be kind of different than all of them. But what's happening here is he's just kind of hanging around on that E note, and this is the perfect place to get lost because it is pretty weird. But truth be told, you can really do anything that you want here and do it as many times as you want. He's just going to play different octaves of an E note. So we'll see, we can play up here, or you can any E that you want, or just go, and then somehow eventually get back to. So this is just kind of a gestural, dramatic way to get back to the beginning again. So I think that's why we see it in these different ways in these arrangements. But let's look at what they're doing in the books. Like I said, this can be a tricky part. It doesn't have to be that tricky. And there's some methods I'll show you to kind of keep track of where you are. So we were last on an A minor chord doing this. Now here's what the Parkening book does. He goes. And we're back. Okay, so what happened there? This carries about 2 or 3 measures altogether. Of course, the beginning of that main theme melody occupies its own end of a pickup measure, right? But really what's happening here is just a bunch of E's, like I said. What I don't like about the Parkening thing is playing these at the same time is kind of hard. And then doing it again. Right, so what I'm going to say is let's not play that first low E. We'll play this B and then play on the and like that. Okay, that's one measure. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Coming from the measure before. Okay, in the next measure, he's going to hit 2 E's again. And then we play the high E. And then we're going to go D sharp to E. It's the beginning phrase, but an octave lower. And here you might think we can just do it as many times as we want. For sure, you can do that. But what happens is we just do it 3 times. D sharp to E 3 times. And then do it the same thing here 3 times. And you're back into the melody. So the third time of those 3 times on the high one was part of the melody that we knew already. So 1, this is the wrong count, but I'm just going to say 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, and you're back to the melody. I think that's a good way to think of it. It's 3 low ones and 3 high ones. I'm going to change that though on you in a second. Here's what we have from the Parkening book, taking out that first low E. All of this stuff is the same thing that we already did. So that's one of the reasons why this song is more, believe it or not, approachable and let's say easier, because pretty much the entire song is encapsulated just in those first 4 measures, and we just keep playing that over and over. And that happy part when it goes to the relative major is absolutely easy if you can do the first part, for sure. So So Parkening took it easy on us there and didn't have us do anything wild. I mean, it is weird, but we stayed in this position. But most other versions of this for guitar are in some way or another going to get you up to this high harmonic there and have you kind of travel around a little bit more. Let's look at these other books and see what they do in that part. What the easy guitar book does is it starts out kind of the way that I would prefer, going B, low E, then two of these. Then we go to this high E, which Parkening did too, and then we play this E. So your guitar's got to be in tune, which mine cannot perfectly be in tune. It's physically impossible apparently. So listen past it. All the way up here, and then plays the harmonic up on the 12th fret, and then goes to D sharp here on this string. We can use any number of fingers. This was the closest one, but we know we're going to have to get back here, so maybe the middle finger's better. And then does a couple of these. Remember, there's 3 of them, so we're going to go 1, 2. Remember, that's not the real count of the measure. It's happening on the and of 2, but I'm just saying 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, and then go over here. That last open string was our ticket to get over here. And then do 3 of those, and we're back. So that's the difference in those 2 versions. Let's look at the big, huge book, see what it does. So in the big book, it's practically the same. The only thing that's different is the first measure getting into it. Here it goes. It just plays an E minor chord. Kind of crazy that there's so much leeway here, and every version is different by a substantial number of notes. And it does the same thing here, though. It goes up to there, harmonic, and then we go down. So the version we're going to end up with here at the end, let's do a combination of those. So Parkening might be easier for you, but I think it's not that bad. And we can really slow down here. I have a scrolling tablature video that you can link to at the end of this video to play along to. But you are going to have to stay pretty metronomic here. But here you can really slow down. Like I said, it's very dramatic. So we can really kind of like break down even and kind of like really stretch the time out. And that makes it easier to play for sure. So in my version of this will be kind of a composite of all those, except I'll play a high E harmonic here, and then play a lower E over there, both harmonics going. So coming from this measure, we'll go. Right, and so that obviously is going to take some coordination. Just a fun little thing to do. I think it's fun. But like I said, any E note that you play, you can go back and forth, and you even can just do this. And then just jump back into that main melody when it feels right. And we're back. Here's one thing that I'm going to add on to the very end. The song ends like this, just on the A minor chord. But I'm going to say, let's add this to it. Now you might think this is overkill, and it is. It's the main melody again, though, but with these chimey open strings, letting these ring over each other. Watch. I just think that's a cool way to do it. And when you get better, maybe you can play the beginning of that main theme melody like this every time. I just like the way those ring over each other. So we have the main melody that we already know, except I'm playing it with my first finger. Middle and index over here, and then I switch over to ring, middle, and index on the B string, and then I'm holding this D on the 7th fret of the G string, pinky here on C on the 10th fret of the 4th string, and go. So we get those ringing over each other. I love that. That's a 9th, and that sounds so cool and modern. That's the sound we're getting there. And then A right here, and the low octave, the root. That open A string. So that's what I'm going to add in. We're getting gradually slower there at the end after we finish the entire thing here. So here's what that ending would sound like. Just a nice little dramatic touch at the very end. Okay, that's the underlying chords of For Elise. We know that already. The 1 to the 5, A minor to E7. But we can do this little strum in between. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and slapping on the 3. We We could go 1 and 2 and up with a thumb right there. I like 1 and 2 and slap and, or don't play the and of 1. Go 1, 2 and slap and. Different ways to slap. There's the palm slap. I mostly prefer this little snare drum sound. I don't know what we call that. Killing the strings almost simultaneously with my index finger stroke here. There's a lot of A minor chords in there. You could also get away with not playing anything if you're playing with somebody else for this phrase. But we can still play A minor over that. And then we go to G7 and then A. And ba ba da 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 da. Do it a million times. Pretty hacky to do, but never stopped me. I also think it's fun to play it in the key of E minor. So if I went way up here, B to B flat. That's a cool way to do it too. And go to town on your B notes. Or down here. You should always try to transpose things, at least into another guitar-friendly key for your music theory. And if you're coming up with your own version of things, sometimes you'll find that, hey, this feels way better to you in another key. I like the E minor one because it puts the melody up higher. Whereas if we put the melody up an octave higher in A minor, we'd be way up here. And we might end up having to go even further than that. But if we were going to do that, and then there's our A minor chord, E7. We don't really get that chiminess. If you have a cutaway, you can. But it's a kind of a tuning danger zone up there. So I think now you know the underlying core of what Für Elise is. We have these different versions from these different books. My version puts some of those together. I think takes some, I did some things of my own there. But I think it has the best of all three worlds there. But if you want to follow along to the entire thing with the scrolling tablets or whatever, just go to this next video and play along with me. Don't forget to get the tab below. And like and subscribe, why not?